Defining PCOS is no easy task, and by the end of this video, you will probably understand why. Quick disclaimer, I'm not a doctor or professional health practitioner, however, I have PCOS myself and have been researching the condition intensively for over 4 years. The two main sources for all my videos will be two of my favorite books on the subject, The Hormone Cure by Dr. Sara Gottfried, who is a medical doctor from Harvard, and 8 Steps to Reverse Your PCOS by Dr. Fiona McCulloch, who is a naturopathic doctor. PCOS has always kind of been a mystery in women's health. It was thought to be strictly a hormonal disorder, but now we know it also affects metabolism and psyche because hormones basically affect everything. Essentially, it decreases a patient's overall quality of life. So let's try to define this mysterious syndrome and shed some light on its causes, symptoms, and implications. Let's start with the name. If you've seen my last video, you know that PCOS stands for Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome, which implies that it's a condition where the ovaries have many cysts. But a lot of women will not have any cysts on their ultrasound and still show symptoms. And funnily enough, even cystic ovaries are not really cystic. A cyst by definition is an abnormal sac of fluid, but the cysts in PCOS are actually follicles that didn't go through the normal ovulation process, so they accumulated in the ovaries. And that's what creates the cystic look. Now, we don't really know why this happens, but as you can see, the name doesn't really reflect the condition, let alone its many faces, and there's actually a movement to change it, but for now, it's PCOS. Now let's talk about the symptoms of PCOS. The symptoms can really differ from woman to woman, and they can even differ in the same woman with age. But there are symptomatic cornerstones. The first one is hyperandrogenism, which basically means that the body is producing too many male hormones. The second one is chronic low-grade inflammation. The body is always low-key inflamed. The last cornerstone is insulin resistance. And in case you don't remember your biology class, no problem, here's a refreshment for you. Insulin is a hormone released by our pancreas when we're digesting carbohydrates. It basically takes the sugar from our bloodstream and transports it to our cells so we can use it as energy. Women with PCOS produce way too much insulin and their cells become resistant to it at the same time, so it doesn't unlock the cells. So now we have too much sugar floating around in the blood and too much insulin floating around. The excess sugar, of course, increases the risk for type 2 diabetes. Women with PCOS are 4 times more likely to have it. And the excess insulin leads the ovaries to produce even more androgens, which in turn increases inflammation. As you can see, it can quickly become this vicious cycle. But what's really interesting is that these 3 symptomatic cornerstones, they can express themselves differently in different women. But the most common symptoms that are experienced are irregular or absent periods, weight gain or obesity in severe cases, acne, excess hair growth on body parts where women shouldn't be growing any hair, infertility, mood disorders, and a decreased ability to cope with stress on a physiological level. So sometimes our minds won't be stressed, but our bodies still will be. They are still producing too much cortisol. And if you're into things like nutrition and health and you know some things about weight loss, you know that if your body is in a constant stress mode, in this constant fight or flight mode, it is very, very hard to lose the excess fat, which is why so many women with PCOS struggle with losing fat, because their bodies are producing way too much cortisol and there's insulin resistance and so much inflammation, so it's just not a safe space for the body to release the fat. You know, it's trying to protect itself. Some women experience all of these symptoms and then some more, while others experience just 1 or 2. Another thing is that women with PCOS are at a higher risk for getting heart disease when they get older. So PCOS is definitely a condition that can keep getting worse with time if it's not managed properly. The good news is it can be managed properly with a lifestyle-based approach, and you can tailor that to your unique case once you gain awareness of your body. The not so good news is that there is no cure. The symptoms can be reversed completely, and there are so many women who have proven that, but we will always kind of have to take better care of ourselves than those who don't have it. If we go back to our old ways, we can kind of reactivate it. But all the healthy habits we develop over time, like going to bed early, getting enough sleep, decreasing stress levels, and not eating refined sugar, all of these things will prevent many other health issues for us in the future, so yay! Okay, so if each sister has a unique set of symptoms, then how is PCOS diagnosed? In order to be diagnosed with PCOS, you currently just need to meet 2 of the 3 so-called Rotterdam criteria: irregular or absent periods, elevated androgen levels, and the cystic appearance of the ovaries. I, for instance, meet the last 2 criteria. By the way, PCOS is a diagnosis of exclusion, so your doctor should rule out other conditions first before they make a PCOS diagnosis. The reason for this is that there are other hormonal syndromes or disorders that can mimic PCOS because they have the same symptoms. One example is non-classic congenital adrenal hyperplasia, or NCAH. This is why it's important that you don't self-diagnose. But if you have suspicions, it might be a good idea to mention them to your doctor, considering the lack of awareness and specialization when it comes to PCOS. As we know from the last video, and if you haven't seen that, go see it now, PCOS affects roughly 1 in 10 women. Some sources even state it's 1 in 5. Either way, it's one of the most common hormonal disorders and the leading cause of infertility in women of reproductive age. Why is there this hormonal disorder epidemic? Why is PCOS so prevalent? There could be many answers here. The modern high-stress lifestyle, the overconsumption of highly processed foods, the increase in environmental stressors like exposure to BPA and common items such as plastic containers. All of these factors let PCOS come to the forefront if a woman is genetically predisposed to it. But why are so many genetically predisposed? Well, that's what we don't know. We don't know the exact cause of PCOS yet, but there is so much research that's being done, and I found a very interesting hypothesis and I want to share it with you. At some point in our evolutionary history, PCOS might have had a reproductive advantage, which would explain the high levels observed today. Women with PCOS are metabolic conservers. Our bodies love to store energy. This is obviously a disadvantage when we are faced with the modern lifestyle where there is an abundance of food and where we are not moving around as much if we are not going to the gym. However, during periods of food shortage, other healthy women go into starvation mode quicker and therefore can't have babies anymore, while we lose weight and become fertile but are still storing energy like a boss, and therefore we are the ones who can then still have babies. Of course, nowadays PCOS doesn't really have that same advantage, but we were once the genetic star sisters, okay? Let's end on this high note. I hope you learned more about PCOS. Subscribe to my channel as I will be sharing so much more about the condition, including how I am learning to manage it naturally. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave me your feedback in the comments, and share this video to spread the word. See you on my next one. Bye!